Welcome back to WCB Jazz Vinyl. So in recent videos, I covered the Blue Note Tone Poet Society membership subscription program, and some people got upset, maybe rightly so. We all know that Vinyl Me Please has recently changed their model as well, and I know some people were upset about that. Covered that in a video too. Well, this type of format doesn't seem to be going away because Verve just announced their own subscription model called the Verve Record Club. So let's talk about this Verve Record Club in terms of some of the basics. So how does it work? How much does it cost? And of course, what are the titles that they've announced in the series thus far? And I'll actually be able to show you the very first one because it just arrived today. Before we go into it, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Lots of content just like this. And if you want to hear about records, what I think about records on a daily basis, you can, of course, head over to Instagram and follow me. I'm at what_can_brown. So the Verve Record Club, again, monthly subscription series, very similar to the Tone Poet Society as well as Vinyl Me Please, or at least what VMP started out trying to be. All titles in this series. So let me kind of give you some of the high level particulars. Then we'll get into things like pricing and the titles, right? So all of the titles in this series are newly remastered by Ryan K. Smith at Sterling Sound from the original analog tapes. None are mastered from digital. These are all pressed on 180 gram at RTI. They are all packaged in tip-on jackets. And so in some ways, this feels like Verve's attempt to kind of take control over that acoustic sound series. I actually don't know the status of that, but that's kind of what it feels like, right? It's just that if you think about everything that's within the Verve sort of parent label catalog, there's actually a lot of different labels. So you don't just have Verve, you don't just have Impulse, you also have Mercury, you have Decca, MGM, other labels, but guess what? One of them is CTI. And even though none of the titles released or announced so far are on CTI, that is quite interesting. I'm going to be very interested to see how this record club evolves for a variety of reasons. But again, some of those CTI albums just haven't been reissued in a while. So similar to the Tone Poet Society, there will indeed be an exclusive title available only to members. But instead of the Tone Poet Society, where they're doing one each quarter, well, in this membership club, it's just going to be one annually. What else to say? Each of the releases are going to be limited to 2,500 copies. And as a member, you also get some additional perks, like merchandise. I don't know if they'll just send that to you or if you're sort of have the ability to buy. They did include a slip mat actually with the first title. You also get early access to upcoming releases in addition to a slight break on the price. So let's kind of cover the price component too. So first of all, if you buy these titles, say month to month, they're going to be $47 a piece. Okay, so that's kind of what you consider sort of, I guess, the retail price of each of these titles. If you sign up for quarterly, it brings the per month price or per title price, because they're the same thing, right? One title per month. Brings it down to $45 a month. If you sign up for 6 months, it's $43 a month. And if you sign up for that annual subscription, it is $41 a month. Each of those prices that I mentioned include shipping, but do not include taxes. And importantly, and different than Tone Poet Society, these titles will not be sold anywhere else other than through the record club. What else to say about it? Well, similar to Tone Poet Society and similar to VMP, no one outside the continental US is eligible. There could be a slight nuance there where it could be that if you're in Hawaii and Alaska, you're eligible for Tone Poet Society and VMP, but I'm not entirely sure. And in any event, the Verve series is limited to folks in the continental US. All right, so I get it. I'm hearing the groan through the video, right? So for the many of you who follow this channel, from outside the United States, I don't even know what to tell you, right? This seems to be an ongoing thing. I don't know if not to get into like a political rant, but I don't know if uncertainty about tariffs and things is one of the reasons. Like there's any number of like geopolitical kinds of things going on that we all hear about in the news, and all I can do is report the news, right? And that is that this series is limited to folks in the continental U.S. So moving on to perhaps something a little bit more positive, let's talk about the first release. So first in the series for February 2025, which shipped about a week ago, again, arrived today, John Coltrane Quartet's album, simply titled, well, Coltrane. So this was originally released on the Impulse label in 1962, and they did release the stereo edition of this album. Other credits on this, recording engineer was indeed Rudy Van Gelder. And actually, side note, the liner notes, and I haven't opened this yet, so we're about to see them. The liner notes are by Bert Goldblatt, which I'm a big fan of. Most of the photography that hangs around this room, outside of the Francis Wolff stuff that now is on that wall, is most of the stuff in this room is by Bert Goldblatt. So I'm a big fan. So I do want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about how this sounds, and obviously, again, haven't even opened it, so I'm going to do like a gap and listen to it, and then give you my thoughts. But I want to tell you, I want to run down like the other titles before we get into it. So let's do that. So the March release in the series is Nina Simone's High Priestess of Soul, originally put out in 1967 on the Philips label. The April title is Hello Dolly by Louis Armstrong. It was originally put on Cap Records in 1964. Now, those are the only two that we know of in terms of exactly what months that they fall. However, Verve has told us some of the future releases. We just don't know. We just don't know which month. So those future titles that they've referenced include Bill Evans's Empathy on the Verve label, Ella Fitzgerald's Ella Swings Gently with Nelson on Verve, Billie Holiday's Stay With Me on Verve, as well as mystery titles. We don't know which titles. They've just said, hey, we have some titles in the works by these artists. And those artists include Ahmad Jamal, Archie Shepp, Dizzy Gillespie, McCoy Tyner, Oscar Peterson, Sarah Vaughan, and Yusuf Lateef. Incidentally, at this very moment, we do not know what that exclusive title is for the calendar year 2025. All right, so again, this is the title. I thought it kind of looked plain. I was surprised there wasn't like a record club hype sticker or something on it, but whatever. It just means that we're not married to this poly bag, and we can replace it with something else, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So let's have a look. So nice cover, obviously tip on, high laminate. That's nice. Everything looks good. Here's the number again, limited to 2,500 copies. Mine happens to be 920. And yeah, otherwise, well, here, in fact, let me show you really quick. Otherwise, this looks pretty good in terms of comparison. So what I have here is in the original. Obviously, mine has a lot of wear, actually. But what you can see here is, very, very similar in design. Obviously, we got some of this new Verve, legal kind of copyright language. And otherwise, if we look at the two covers, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, yes, this one looks like a little bit greener, and this one perhaps is a little bit bluer. But realistically, the variation in tones on a lot of these covers, I mean, it just kind of varied anyway. So I think generally these look pretty good. Actually, if anything, it could be that they enlarged the image of Coltrane just a little bit. But otherwise, I think the cover looks great. Now, I mentioned that Bert Goldblatt did the photos in the liner notes. So here you can see, and actually what's interesting, check this out. Some of the reissues, they actually did black text, black images inside the gatefold, but this one they preserved the original blue format. So these, I suppose, would be the photos taken by Bert Goldblatt, which is cool. And yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good. No crunched corners or anything. And this is kind of cool too. So they replicated the label look, right? Which we've kind of expected to see, just because Acoustic Sounds has been doing it, and it's easy enough, I suppose, to do it. Looks pretty flat, and obviously I'll confirm that when I put it on the turntable. And what else to say? Actually, is there anything in the? Trying to see. It looks like they might have stamped something in it, but I can't quite tell. Just the standard stuff that they stamp in the dead wax or the run out. So yeah, so let's take a look or take a listen actually, and I'll tell you what I think. But just one quick thing. They included a slip mat. So I mentioned that apparently they may be sending some merch every now and then. They included this Vinyl Record Club or Verve Record Club slip mat. So I actually do use these from time to time. I kind of go back and forth between felt ones and cork. Supposed to help prevent slippage, I suppose. So yeah, that's what it came with. Now, I guess let's talk about how this sounds, and actually, because I have this original pressing, maybe a little bit of a comparison. All right, so I have had the opportunity now to play both this new pressing as well as the original pressing, both stereo, right? So we're kind of doing apples to apples here. And what I would say in terms of the headline of my comparison or my thoughts is that I actually think that this new reissue does a great job of replicating that original source material, perhaps with some improvements that are inherent to the remastering, and perhaps with some improvements simply because it's a brand new pressing, right? So the older pressings are going to have a little bit of a noise floor. Mine also has a little bit of distortion too, because I would say that my copy is probably VG. And in order to get a near mint copy of this particular album, you're spending north of $100, probably sometimes more than 200. So there's something to be said for the fact that that there's a modern pressing that people can enjoy, and that it does such a great job of replicating the music on the original pressing. I'll say this, there's nothing that I'm missing from that original pressing when it comes to this remastering. It's not like there's sounds or there's frequencies or content or anything on that original pressing that isn't brought forward in the in this new reissue. What I would say though is that because you don't have sort of the pops and the ticks and the noise floor and things in this remastering, you might pay a little bit of attention to the fact that perhaps this was not Rudy Van Gelder's best recording. It's not a bad recording by any means, and in fact, I think that there's a lot to love about it. But I do think that there are some, maybe inadequacies compared to other recordings by John Coltrane's quartet, and I think that if I was going to point out anything in particular, it would be the bass. So Garrison's bass here is not particularly distinct. It is, you certainly hear him playing, but you don't hear his attacks. It does kind of have a little bit of a boomy sort of quality, and you're not really going to hear it in the same way that you would, call it a quieter recording. But that's not what this music is. I mean, you do have a ballad here, but I don't think this is meant to be a quiet, sort of nuanced recording. At the end of the day, you have John Coltrane in the left channel on both of these. I mean, it's the same, stereo separation. He is quite prominent in that left channel. And in fact, I think he sounds even just a little bit louder, a little bit punchier on the new pressing versus the original. And so, even to the extent that you could hear the bass, if they were capturing some of that, more of that detail, it's just sort of overshadowed by Coltrane's sax. But that's just the nature of this recording, and we can't expect the reissue to do something that is not present in the original master tape, right? So I had just been thinking that, in an ideal world, perhaps the bass would have been mic'd differently or something like that. So that's kind of the central component, I think, of my complaint. Now, I did say that Coltrane sounds a little bit louder in the modern, in the reissue. Not a bad thing, but he is quite loud, and he is in the left channel mostly. There's going to be some bleed in the right channel, but I would say that, it sure would have been nice. And now I'm trying to remember how Rudy Van Gelder did it for some of the other titles on Impulse, if Coltrane was more in the center. But regardless, on this one, he is much more in the left channel, and I almost like want him to be in the center on this one for some reason, just because the it feels like to me that Elvin Jones and Garrison take a little bit of a backseat on this album compared to McCoy Tyner and John Coltrane. And to have the two the musicians that kind of take a backseat in one channel together is just a little bit, it's maybe not ideal. But why am I? Who am I to question, right? This fantastic album. And this is me hunting for negative things to say about what is fantastic music. And so some of the other good things about this is that McCoy Tyner sounds fantastic. I think he is the biggest difference between the original and the reissue. He sounds better. The piano sounds warmer, sounds more natural, better sustains and stuff like that. I was really impressed, especially when he takes a solo and you can hear him a little bit more prominently. I think that that's probably the biggest difference. So again, overall, yes, the boominess of the bass and sort of indistinct attacks, it's a little bit unfortunate, but it's true for both. And there are some of these highlights in terms of in terms of McCoy Tyner and Coltrane. And I will say that that Elvin Jones's brushwork is pretty nice. Like there is a lot of like detail to some of the hits that he's doing, really throughout, and I really enjoyed that. Funnily enough, I put this reissue on and I was listening to it and I was like, man, I can't. Why can't I hear much from the drums? And I was getting really disappointed. And then I realized my high pass filter button was pressed because the last time, the previous record that I had spun was a 78 RPM shellac disc on a different turntable, but I hooked it up to this system. And, those always have like the kind of hiss and that kind of thing. And so I pressed the filter to try to get rid of some of that, and I forgot to depress it. So anyway, fortunately I discovered that, pressed it, and I was like, oh, there's the Elvin Jones that I've been missing on this recording. I was very happy to have discovered that, because I was about to like completely trash its playing, or at least trash the recording. So anyway, there's obviously there's no problems there. So yeah, that's kind of, those are kind of my thoughts in terms of these two pressings. I think you've kind of gotten the sense. It does really honor, I think, the original one. There's nothing that's in particularly different. They haven't changed any of the music. They haven't really nothing is too overt, that you're going to notice. Like they didn't try to make this I don't know, sort of audiophile recording for audiophile recording's sake. It does a good job of honoring that original one. Maybe Coltrane could be a little bit softer in that left channel, but that's just kind of the balance, I think, that Rudy Van Gelder chose as well. So if you were interested in this album otherwise, what are your options? Well, there's that original pressing, which I mentioned, and those can get a little expensive. There's also the Analog Productions 45 RPM edition from 2009 that I've never listened to, so I don't know really much about that. Can't comment. There was also one that was pressed in 2022. So just a couple of years ago, it was sold through the Verve, what do they call it? Like center stage, retail shop. I don't really know about that one. So I know that it was pressed at Optimal. I know that they claimed somewhere that it was all analog, but I don't think that they ever referenced actually who did the remastering. So that one is a little bit, I'm just uncertain on exactly what that is. Now, I will say that one is currently on sale on the Verve Center Stage store for like $19.98. So it is, so it is quite a bit cheaper. In fact, less than half the price of this new one, right? That Ryan K. Smith is, mastering for this club thing. But I've never heard that one either. When that came out, I think I remember when that came out, and I was just it wasn't compelling enough for me to say, oh, I'm interested in how that sounds compared to my original. Again, even though my original is VG, I just wanted to have a little bit more confidence that what I was going to get was a quality product. But I can't really speak to that 2022 edition because I didn't get it. So what I will say is that, now we have an edition that we can sort of be confident that they sourced from the analog tapes, that we can be confident that they had some of the right people involved in terms of RTI, as well as obviously Ryan K. Smith. So, there's something to be said for that. And, and otherwise, I actually don't know, what edition would be preferable other than some of those early ones. This wasn't a title that was only released, say, in 1962, and then they didn't have reissues. They had reissues of this well into the 70s, and I think a lot of those used the Van Gelder metalwork. So theoretically, those should sound pretty good as well. All right, so what now? Well, I did sign up for a quarterly membership, similar to what I did with the Tone Poet Society. I just wanted to dip my toe into it, figure out if it was something that I wanted to do going forward. And obviously, a big part of this is going to be, what are the titles? The titles in this Verve series are not as compelling as Blue Note. let's be real, or at least, here's the thing. This is subjective. They're not as compelling for me. I think though, for a lot of folks who really like that acoustic sounds Verve series that was doing both Verve as well as Impulse titles, this is going to be compelling. I think for folks who really like vocalists, right, like Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, I think this is going to be compelling for them as well. Now, out of the titles that they've announced so far, certainly this one was the highlight, and it just so happened to be the first. But this is one of the ones I was most looking forward to. The Bill Evans title as well. I'm curious what they're going to do with Yusef Lateef in terms of which title they choose. So there are some in this series that are interesting to me, and I guess my interest in continuing to do this in a quarterly kind of format versus buying them individually for $47 is just going to be based on the choices that they make, right? I don't need to have the entire series, to the same as I don't need to have the entire series of really of any of these, whether they're just regular series or they're subscription models. I'm still going after just those titles that I want. This one happened to be an easy grab for me again because my existing one is in VG shape and has some issues, has some pops, has some distortion, some probably groove damage, that kind of thing. So it simply made sense for me to be able to get a quality pressing, and I certainly am not disappointed at all in this release. So that's kind of it. Those are my thoughts about the club. This first release. I know there's going to be some energy around this idea that it's limited to folks in the US, as some of these other subscription series are doing, and I don't have an answer for you. I don't. There's nothing I can say about it. I don't know the full reasons why they're doing it. I know that Blue Note is supposedly working on a solution. That's something that Joe Harley has said, but I don't know that they've come to a conclusion on that. And time will tell if there's similar solutions for some of these other sort of subscription models. So if you want to know more about this membership club, certainly go over to the Verve site, because I think they set up a whole site that focuses on this. They have an FAQ section in case you have any questions. I don't represent the label, so I don't can't pretend to answer on their behalf, right? But hope this was interesting, especially for those folks who are maybe on the fence about whether to join this series, or maybe weren't even aware of it, because frankly, they didn't do as good of a job marketing this thing as I think Blue Note did with the Tone Poet Society. So maybe this is new news to some of you. So thanks very much for tuning in, as always, and I'll see you next time.